You're listening to Big World Network.
Taking Out the Trash, Season 2, Episode 1, an Estelle Watkins mystery, written by Tristy Pinkston, read by Wendy Herman. Vera and Estelle crowded around the monitor. Estelle wondered for a brief minute if Tony felt a little claustrophobic, stuck like he was in a chair with two women leaning over him, but the thought slipped from her mind as she paid attention to the screen. The cheerfully smiling face of Senator Beckham looked back at her, almost making eye contact with her in a way that was totally creepy, considering she knew it wasn't possible, and yet she wondered if it somehow was possible. She almost believed that if she took a step to the side, his eyes would follow her, like a painting in a haunted house, but she was too chicken to try it out. And now that Senator Caldwell is out of the picture, we no longer have to worry about the environmental bill. What? Estelle patted Tony's shoulder, gently at first, but then almost whacking him. Go back! What did he just say? Tony replayed that segment, and the three of them stood there with their jaws agape. I don't believe what I just heard, Vera said. Tony, when was this recorded? Tony checked. The night Caldwell was killed. Estelle really needed to sit down. She felt around wildly, but she couldn't find another chair. Tony must have sensed her distress, either that or he didn't like how she kept whacking him, and he stood, offering her the chair. She sank into it, her head whirling, feeling relieved and bewildered all at the same time. Did he just confess to the murder? Now don't get all excited, Mrs. Watkins, Tony said. He did not confess, but he did admit to knowledge that Caldwell was no longer running for office. Because he was dead. Vera got right to the point, as always. He can't run for office if he's dead. That's what Beckham was saying here. We don't know that. And what else was he saying? Vera wasn't going to back down, but Tony finally did. He sighed. All right, we'll suppose for the time being that Senator Beckham had knowledge that Senator Caldwell was dead. That does not mean he did it. But if he knew about it and didn't report it, doesn't that make him an accomplice after the fact, or something like that? Estelle asked. Tony smiled and shook his head. Andrew warned me about the two of you. What did he say? Vera wanted to know. He said you'd try to use all the tricks in the old detective shows and would get yourself into a lot of trouble. If you breaking into this room wasn't proof enough for me, I get more convinced by the minute. We wouldn't use all the tricks, Estelle said in her defense. I wouldn't, for instance, try to replicate anything from The Fall Guy. Did you know that Lee Majors did most of his own stunts? A person could get killed that way. The fact is, Mrs. Watkins, you should not be here at all. You should be home, knitting or crocheting or doing whatever it is you do. I bake and I quilt. I also garden, but I don't think you're asking for a list of my hobbies. Estelle folded her arms across her chest and looked him over appraisingly. He was rather handsome, in a mid-40s, obviously single, tie didn't match the suit sort of way. He had dark hair, not as dark as Remington Steele's, and brown eyes, although not quite as rich as Magnum's. I think you want us off this case. You're not on the case. That's what I keep telling you. We looked at the tape together like I agreed to do, and now it's time for you to leave. Mr. Brown, do you have children? Estelle made no move to leave. That was absolutely not in her agenda. No, I don't. Andrew is everything to me. He's my only child. I almost died giving birth to him, and he has been my joy every single day since then. I cannot just sit home and quilt and wait for other people to rescue him. I have to be involved. Tony looked very uncomfortable for a moment, then ran his hands through his hair. Fine, fine. It doesn't matter what I say. I can't trump childbirth. And almost dying, Vera added. And almost dying. Tony looked at the two ladies in turn. We need to get out of here, and then we need to decide what we're doing next. I noticed you said we. Did you notice that, Vera? Yes, I certainly did. Does that mean you'll let us work with you? Vera crossed her arms as well, physically showing her support of Estelle's argument. We'll go someplace else and talk about it, okay? I can't promise anything right now. Estelle figured that was good enough for that exact moment. After all, they could be discovered at any minute, and persons who are in the detective business should not form joint ventures unless they can think clearly, in a quiet place, with a nice pad of paper where they can draw out the pluses and minuses. She was willing to wait a bit for her answer. Tony set their tray on the table, then slid into the booth. The diner he had chosen for their post-escape pre-partnership discussion wasn't the nicest, and Estelle wondered if she should polish her fork with her napkin before she ate. "So," he said, "you want to help me investigate." "I think it's more a matter of you helping us." Vera took a sip of her cherry Coke, then continued. "After all, we've been on this case for a couple of days now. We have a much more clear understanding of what's going on." "You do?" "Absolutely," Estelle assured him. "You will most definitely want to defer to our superior knowledge." "And that includes years of training and experience, and a gun?" "Well, of course not. Don't be silly." Estelle picked up an onion ring and idly dipped it in her ketchup, swirling it around and around. "That's what we'd need you for." "I see. It's so kind of you to include me in your plans." Tony picked up a mayonnaise packet, squirted the contents all over in his ketchup, and used the tip of a fry to stir it together. "What on earth are you doing?" Vera asked. "Making fry sauce. Try it." He pushed his dish a little closer, and Vera eyed it with great suspicion. "Are you sure it's safe?" Tony threw his head back and laughed. "Safe? Of course it's safe. I eat it all the time." "That doesn't exactly inspire confidence." "Listen, I don't offer fry sauce to just anyone. I'm showing you a great deal of favoritism by even suggesting it." "Going once. Going twice." Vera grabbed one of Estelle's onion rings and plunged it into Tony's salmon-colored concoction before he pulled it away. She bit into it and sighed. "Okay, that's good." Estelle cleared her throat. "I'm glad you are enjoying your meal and all that good stuff, but we have to get down to business here. Tony, what if we split up the tasks? We need to pay a call to Senator Beckham and look into how he might have gotten hold of Andrew's diabetes treatment supplies. Then, just wait a minute." Tony finished chewing his fry. "What do you mean we need to visit Senator Beckham? We most certainly do not need to do that." "And why is that? He practically confessed on tape, did he not?" "Mrs. Watkins, we have no proof of that. We had to leave the room before I could make a copy. It's just our word against his." Estelle had never been particularly against cleaning women, but she was downright angry with the one at the television studio. That woman's appearance had forced them to leave JJ's office sooner than they wanted, and she badly wished they'd been able to stay long enough to get that tape. It could make all the difference in Andrew's case. "So let's go back and make a copy," she suggested. Tony nearly choked on his drink. "You want us to go back there?" Vera looked similarly surprised. "Estelle, how many times do you want us to break into that place?" "We never broke in, technically," Estelle reminded her. "And I think we should just keep going back until we get all our answers. Of course, if we could get them all at once, it would be a lot handier, but we'll just have to keep doing our best, won't we?"
This has been a presentation of Big World Network. Visit us on bigworldnetwork.com for more free weekly series, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Big World Network.